So we refer to our shallow water inline rigs quite a bit, and that's a little different than our high water rigs. So we wanted to do a little video for you to show you the few differences, see if that helps you on our low water flows here on the South Holston and Watauga. All right, for the leader setup, typically I'm going to use a Scientific Angler 9-foot 5X or 9-foot 6X. There's some people that will fish a 7.5-foot leader. I'm typically on the side that wants to get it away from my fly line as much as possible, and I'm going to use that indicator to go towards my flies to keep the majority of that leader still up out of the water so we don't get hung up as much. All right, so for our shallow water inline rig, our flows typically when we're fishing this here on the South Holston is when it's going to be 0 generation, and then even if a pulse comes through, I'm still going to keep it with that shallow inline rig. And then for the Watauga, we can fish this as well when they're on that 240 flow. Okay, so in front of me I have a little example of our shallow water inline rig. So if I had a 9-foot 5X leader, I'm going to tip it off of it. I'm not going to tie my first fly directly to the original leader length. I typically am at about 18 to 20 inches unless I see the water and it's lower than I was thinking or a little bit higher, but typically I'm going to start about 18 to 20 inches. What it does is it allows me to have a first connection point at the end of my leader that if I needed to, I could add a little piece of split shot and take it off depending on if I found a deeper pool or if my flies just weren't getting down as fast enough. So right in the middle, I'm going to have my first tag fly. It's a little non-weighted pheasant tail that's been a great little fly for us this year. And then at the very end of it, I've got my point fly, which is a little stripper midge. These kind of are my bread and butter on low water here on the South Holston and Watauga. So 18 to 20 inches, that tag fly right in the middle gives good action to it, and a little stripper midge at the end. Okay, so for our shallow water inline rig, for indicators, use a couple different ones, airlocks. I've got an Oros here. Another favorite of mine is the Lefty Cray yarn or the polypropylene yarn. I would say about 90% of the time I'm going to use yarn. There's a few instances that if we change out fly, a little bit heavier fly, or I've got some split shot on, I'll go to an Oros or a small airlock. Seems in real riffly water, it doesn't spook the fish too much, but on that slow glass water, I definitely want to go to a yarn indicator. For setting depth on either the Oros airlock or the yarn indicator, kind of my rule of thumb is I go the 1.5 times of whatever water I'm fishing. If I was to measure that out, the equivalent would be, I would say, 35 inches or so, give or take. I've measured it a couple times just to see, but I'll kind of take my right hand with the bottom fly and I'll measure across my chest like that. Again, it's different for all the different water depths that we're fishing, but that's kind of where we're at across the South Holston and Watauga on low water. For the yarn indicator, I'm always applying the high and dry floatant. This is really good. The biggest thing that we always tell everybody is when you are going to put this on, make sure that you pull the fibers apart of the yarn, whether it's the polypropylene or the Lefty Cray, really sparse. And what that does is that allows the high and dry floatant to soak into those fibers. And then before letting that yarn indicator hit the water, I like to give it a few false casts, 5 to 10, and that kind of flashes off the excess floatant, and then it's not going to just absorb the water. So that's a few tricks for you. And then I always keep a really good brush, which these are now sold here in the store, to brush out those indicators throughout the day to get all that excess water, and then it helps kind of pull those fibers apart before we even apply the application. If you guys want to see a video on how to build this Dorsey system, check the link in the description below. If you guys have any other questions about our shallow water inline rigs or even high water, feel free to shoot us a message. Make sure you all like and subscribe for tips and tricks like this.